We're going to talk about two very interesting aspects of accountancy. Firstly, the impact of AI, automation, and kind of open banking on the accountancy profession on the back of industry research that we're releasing today. And then secondly, of course, the impact of COVID on the industry and how that might shape the industry going forward. We're very lucky to have a distinguished group of panelists with us today representing. We have Ed Molyneux, who is the CEO and co-founder of Marique Flamand, who's the CEO of Metal, a digital bank owned by NatWest and also a partner of FreeAgent. We have Tony Margitarelli, who is the chairman of ICPA, which is the Institute of Certified Practicing Accountants. We have Julia Kermode, who is the CEO of FCSA, which is a freelancer and contract services association. We have Dr. Dinusha Wirawardani, who is a senior lecturer in accounting and finance at the University of West London. And then we have Thomas Widarowski, who is the owner of Safi Advisory, an accountant practice itself. I think I'll then hand over to Ed to give his initial views on the topic and COVID.
Thanks very much, Michael. And it's a real pleasure to be welcoming everyone here today. As Michael says, FreeAgent are officially hosting this event. I guess we are in somewhat different circumstances that we were originally expecting, but I think it'll be an interesting session. Just thinking about the research results, reading through them, I was very much reminded of something Bill Gates said a couple of years ago when he said, if we always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10, and when we look back on what's changed in the last 10 years in technology, from the proliferation of smartphones to the upending of one business model after another, I think in a way it would be strange if there weren't radical changes to the way the accounting profession operates in the coming 10 years. And I think one other thing that research shows is how the younger generation of accountants understand that pace of change better, and the research shows them to be much more bullish about the rate of change. I think there is something in this perception of a relatively slow rate of recent change. I think part of the problem there is the high expectations in some areas laid at the door of open banking in itself. I think I'd reflect that open banking is very much an infrastructure technology. It's the underpinning of a new set of opportunities rather than something customers will have day-to-day contact with. Just as the technology that underpins the internet was largely there back in the late 1990s, but took perhaps a decade to really start to impact everyone's lives. I don't think open banking is on the same scale in terms of impact as the wider internet, but it's certainly already making a difference to the way software providers like us at FreeAgent develop our propositions. We are now pretty certain that customers can use a secure and trusted mechanism to connect our software to their bank. And it's assumptions like these that allow us to confidently build new tools on top. So when we can rely on timely and accurate data, we can build ways of providing real insights for businesses that help them manage their finances better. We can more accurately forecast near-term cash flows to avoid preventable cash crunches. We can start to see our platforms more as day-to-day hubs of data and start to triangulate and infer signals about business performance, and so find opportunities to improve it. We can think about integrated lending and insurance and credit scoring and point of sale and legal and HR services. So we believe that open banking, alongside increasing levels of automation, are just the start, the underpinnings of a whole new set of capabilities that will have a beneficial impact and make real change on both accounting professionals and their clients alike. Now, some of these data and automation capabilities aren't exactly new, but what we have seen is the uptake of tools like online accounting has been slow compared to changes in other industries. As author William Gibson once said, the future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed. And I think that's because changing behavior is hard. One of the things we found in particular is that people's attachment to Excel spreadsheets seems to be quite tenacious, and I think better the devil you know for many people. But in these difficult times especially, we're already seeing a lot of behavioural changes by necessity, just like we all find ourselves on a Zoom call today rather than in a fancy seminar room in central London. And we believe that some of these changes, like us all embracing remote working and relying more and more on online tools, will at least partly stick even when things go back to a relative normal. So maybe it's in lockdown we'll find some of the answers for our post-lockdown world, and perhaps that's just as well. Whatever kind of world exists for freelancers and micro businesses in the future, one thing we do know is that in relation to their finances, all businesses will need to be at the very top of their game.
Thank you very much, Ed. I'm going to hand over to Marique.
Thanks, Michael. So very quickly, as mentioned, I look after Metal, which is the NatWest Digital Business Bank, and we're very proud of actually the work that we've done with FreeAgent, because actually linking into open banking, we definitely believe in an open banking world where customers can actually plug the different services that they need to operate their business as much as they need and with the maximum integration. In the work that we do, we actually focus on customers and their needs, and also to talk a lot to accountancies to understand what actually matters to them in this new world and the digitalization that we see. Metal is a unique set within the NatWest group because actually all we do is completely digitalized. So a couple of features, for example, that we have, the fact that it's completely digitalized from start to end, and all the integrations that we have, for example, such as with tools such as with FreeAgent. On reflection of the result of the survey and the topics of today, I thought I'd share two things, couple of insights that we are seeing on our side from a digitalization and AI perspective, and then also talk a bit more about AI, what it is actually and what it isn't, because I think there is quite still a lot of myth around that. And the last part of what I'll touch upon is more around COVID and the changes in behavior that we're already starting to see. So from our research and insights on digitalization, what we're seeing is that there is definitely a change in the jobs that are to be done out there, in particular around the accountant's job, the increase of cloud software base to support the practice, to support the interaction with customers, from anything that goes from bookkeeping to tax accounting, all of that is just increasingly more and more digitalized. The automation of admin tasks also is definitely being digitalized. And it is leading accountancy practices, and I think it will be interesting to hear from some of the other panelists, but basically to enter new spaces and to actually spend more time and quality time with customers rather than having to do quite a lot of those automated tasks. What we see also is a demand to actually have more time to be able to support on the strategy and the planning and adding value services rather than actually having to focus on the accounting tasks that are at hand. In terms of customer behaviors, what we are seeing, and it's a fact known within the industry, but with the rise of open banking, this has actually pushed the fintech in particular world to innovate and to create new ways of interacting with customers. And on that, in particular in our world, what we see is that challenger banks have just completely raised the standards of what is actually needed and what is good and what good looks like for customers. Experiences need to be instant, simple, transparent, and most of the time are completely free. So that's now the new set of standards. In that, what we're saying, which is also interesting, is that the trust in challenger brands is rising, which is also something that we think is a fact to keep in mind, because new brands can now emerge, and actually it's all about the services, the AI, the insights, and what it provides for customers to be able to link on that. Interestingly, though, it seems that with COVID, we're seeing a rush back in a way to traditional banks. So although we have all this rise of fintech, we definitely see that the household names are actually still trusted and known. On AI, a couple of thoughts on that. I think there is still, it's still a big word that is being used, sometimes well used, sometimes wrongly used, but there is definitely a lot of value in having a robot advisor and in having basically more and more automation into insights and to actually helping small businesses, but also accountants, to help predict what the cash flow of the future will be for a business. So in that, we definitely see a lot of value. We can see also that there is an emerging category of robo-accountants. Some players in different countries are playing on that. But again, it is super important to say that it is because of those insights that actually we think people will get what they want, which is basically more time and more free time to actually focus on added value services. And the last thought on AI, maybe it's that there is definitely a clear conversion between banking and accounting. And I think you heard Ed speak of, the platform play that FreeAgent is. And interestingly enough, Metal is also a platform play. And I think that's just driven by the fact that, as of now, customers will just enter whichever world they want to enter, and then they'll have different platforms that they can actually interact with. The last part in terms of insights for today is on COVID and what are the trends that we're seeing on that. And again, echoing some of the points that Ed has mentioned, but I think if anything, what we're seeing is that COVID is creating new habits and new behaviors. Hopefully, those will stick. If anything, it is increasing the speed of digitalization. This conference is an absolute example of that. Now the question will be, will those habits stay long enough so that they really remain and that they stick around? At Metal, what we are seeing is still a very strong influx of business creation, although market data show that there is definitely a slowdown in business creation. Our hypothesis, and will be interesting again here to hear more from other panelists, but it's that actually there is a shift to freelance, there is a shift to small personal businesses, and actually as there are more and more job losses, people are also trying to look for new creative way to create their business in a different manner, which actually creates an influx in a need for purely digital operations for small businesses. We've looked at company registration as a proxy for business creation, and on that what we can see is that definitely there is a stronger dip into formation of companies, and probably something actually a stronger dip than anything we've seen in 2009, 2010. The other thing on COVID that we're seeing is that the habits that will be created are completely leading us to lead different lives, from the habits we now have at home and how home and business are being mixed, to how businesses actually have to handle the work they do, but also the finances that they have. The top of mind thing from all businesses that we actually talk with is actually cash flow issues and how that can be handled going forward and how we make sure that businesses are sustainable. So in short, I think this is just an acceleration of digitalization. It will be very interesting to see what stays going forward, and will be interesting also to see how much of that can actually help and push some of the open banking and AI digitalization that we've seen.
Tony, over to you for your views.
Yes, morning everyone. I'm Tony Martelli, Chairman at ICPA. Those of you maybe don't know the ICPA too well, we're an organisation dedicated to helping small practice accountants across the UK. Quick thank you for FreeAgent to asking me to present today, and for basically giving me a reason to get up and have a shave this morning. Let's talk first of all about small practice accountants and automation and what's going on with small practice accountants and automation. Small practice accountants, they understand the value of a pound. They know how long an hour is. They know how long half an hour is. They are constantly looking at ways to reduce the time spent on repetitive tasks, and I don't mean this in a bad way, more menial type tasks, to reduce that time, to shave time here, there and everywhere, to automate as much as possible, because they know if they can reduce the time, that makes them more competitive, that frees up time to do other work, and they can pass those time savings on to their clients should they wish to. It's automation and time saving, it's in small practice's DNA. It's that important, and it's what they're doing every single day, what they're doing all the time. Now, some of the things that we're seeing today and we're looking at today that we consider revolutionary in the past, but they're not anymore, are they? I would suggest cloud computing now is not revolutionary anymore. 4 or 5 years ago it was. Now it's all pervasive, it's everywhere. It's basically de rigueur, isn't it? Cloud computing, everybody's cloud computing. The guys at FreeAgent said, what are you seeing as the future? What do you see for the future of the small practice accountant? And to me, I looked at it, and the answer to me all day long is open banking. Open banking for small practice accountants, is as delivered by the new dynamic banks, the challenger banks, the likes of Coconut, Starling Tide, and a few others. This is going to be the future for small practice accountants. This is going to be it's going to play a significant role for small practice accountants, and I'm going to say here it's going to be as important as the introduction of cloud, and I think it could actually rival the introduction of the spreadsheet. I've said it, Tony said it, the spreadsheet, I've used the word, there it goes, and I think it is going to rival the spreadsheet. And the reason for this, why is this? Well, we've got to the situation where the banks are going to automate and provide us with that bedrock that we all need, those things called the bookkeeping. It's going to provide the bookkeeping and the figures and the numbers. And it's going to do this at no additional cost to the account holder, at no additional cost to the accountant. It's going to give us something that we long for, that every small practice accountant wants: real-time accounting, real-time accountant oversight, real-time insight into the figures, with the certainty that it's basically probably 90% the figures are right, maybe something's in the wrong place, but basically real-time understanding of the figures. This is what it's about, and that's why I'm saying to you, here, that this is going to be the future of the small practice account. The guys asked us about COVID, and one of the things, small practice accounts and COVID, what it's done is it's brought into focus the importance of that word compliance. Within the industry there, or the profession, within the profession, there's this big thing about advisory compliance. Advisory, compliance is dead, everything's advisory. Advisory, that is vitally important, don't get me wrong, but you can't advise if you haven't got the bedrock, you haven't got the figures right in the first place. And advisory is for some, compliance is for everyone. And at this moment in time, in the COVID scenario we're in, compliance for everyone means making sure that they can get those loans that their business needs, making sure their clients understand how to furlough, who can be furloughed, and go and actually get those furloughs on their behalf. That's compliance. Compliance now is in sharp focus. It's what accountants do, and it's brought it back from all advisory to the bedrock compliance. And that's my view anyway.
Julia, over to you for your views.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm Chief Executive of FCSA, which is an association for accountants that specialise in supporting self-employed people, generally working through a limited company basis. So it's business accounts for self-employed people. So in terms of kind of what we think around AI and automation and the interesting research that FreeAgent have done, we actually have a very positive view of the future and how this will work together. We believe that there's huge potential for it to free up accountants from doing the low-level tasks that perhaps they don't necessarily always want to spend their time on, and also it's not necessarily an appropriate use of their skills, nor indeed necessarily what their clients are paying for. And the FreeAgent research has said that maybe 10 hours a week on average might be saved for accountants. And of course, accountants can use that time to bring more value to their clients. And you know, the research also says that one in two of the accountants believe that automation will reduce their stress and or boredom from data entry tasks. So you've got two really powerful impacts there of AI and automation, both working together to the same end, which is accountants freed up, clients getting an arguably more strategic service from their accountants as a result of that. In particular, our understanding of what accountant clients want is that more strategic view, the insights on the financial affairs from their accountants. How can they grow the business? How can they seize new opportunities? How can they develop financial plans for the near and medium and indeed long-term future for their business? So it's all of those things that they want. And also my understanding from FreeAgent's research is that those are the types of activities that accountants themselves want to do as well. So it really is that win-win. Just to pick up on a couple of points already mentioned, I think the automation of bank statements with accountancy software will certainly enable transactions to be automatically reconciled with client accounts, which will reduce the likelihood of errors. And just picking up on Marika's point of emerging robo-accountants, I mean, I just love that. That's brilliant. Why don't we have a whole new profession of robo-accountants, and then everyone's a winner? It will also, I think, enable reports to be generated for HMRC automatically, which we've got an eye on developments in terms of making tax digital, which will require regular reports to be made to HMRC. And obviously, automation and AI can help auto-populate those reports potentially. They will probably still need to be signed off and checked, etc. But as I say, that's just another example of kind of a win-win from these developments. and it's really, really exciting times. In terms of kind of what we're seeing in relation to COVID at the moment, what I'm hoping, but I don't necessarily know is the case, but what I'm hoping is that people running their own business, if they've got a bit more time on their hands because of by virtue of being locked down to an extent, then perhaps they might use some of that time to prioritize understanding their business finances, because all too often I think people are sometimes a bit too passive about their financial affairs, and they need to, it's almost people are scared to kind of have a look at what's going on within their business, and they just kind of hope that the accountant is looking after it all, and that kind of everything is moving along. But actually, if they've got time on their hands, I think they should be looking at exactly where they're at financially. And it's not to say people are in denial, but I think the more you be active about your accounts, the more you can make a good, solid business decisions and plan for the future and get the most out of your accountant. And of course, picking up on Tony's point in relation to the accountant then having a role in supporting their clients to get access to all the different support measures that the government have got in place. So that's kind of my positive view of the impact of COVID. And again, it's all about this win-win for the client and for the accountant.
Danusha, over to you for your views, please.
Just to, introduce myself a little bit. So, as Michael said earlier, I'm a senior lecturer in accounting finance at the Claude Lister Business School of the University of West London, where I basically head all the accounting and finance courses at both undergrad and postgrad levels. And I am also a member of ACCA's Global Council, which is the governing body of ACCA. So coming back to today's debate on how AI and digitization is basically making the accounting profession more strategic, we're actually seeing more and more, the finance profession is actually undergoing a lot of rapid changes, and professional accountants are taking on a more strategic role from basically now on up till probably the next 10 years or so. And we are actually seeing more and more intelligent automated accounting systems coming into place, which are actually replacing, manual work. So, for example, we have, routing requests that might be handled by algorithms, and people will actually spend less time preparing data for analysis and will spend more time on asking questions like, what does this tell me about the business, and how can the business close gaps in performance expectations? So traditional processes will actually disappear because, things like cloud computing will change the operations of the finance function. And finance itself will excel in translating business practices and governance models into automated processes. There will be increased expectations for support from business finance, for example, business partnering. And business partnering itself will shift upstream from budgeting and reporting to include, things like scenario planning and advanced forecasting. And we are seeing a growth in specialized finance like tax and treasury, for example, and there will actually be a premium on talent that understands both business and technology. And in fact, these professionals are already in short supply. And there would be a lot more cross-functional collaboration between business people, tech teams, and finance strategists. So what's important to note is actually the traditional accountant will become a finance strategist going forward. And I think Tony touched on this as well. Real-time metrics and monitoring will just become a norm very soon. And, forecasting wouldn't be monthly or quarterly, but it would be in real time. But this also means that shareholder expectations for information and insights change dramatically. And as a consequence of that, actually, finance teams would probably find it more challenging to oversee data because now it's being exposed to a lot more business users. And we'll also see, a shift to a hybrid workforce, so a mix of permanent workers, temporary, on-site, remote, and also more gig workers with, the Gen Z workforce coming in as well. And we will also see more designations like new designations like chief data officers. And with this AI and this whole digital transformation, this will lead to sort of increased regulation and stronger governance. So we see a greater harmonization of accounting and business standards, which will actually affect professionals, finance professionals at all levels around the world. And there'll be regulations on data collection, storage, analytics, more GDPR considerations, and a whole new dimension of digital ethics coming into place as well. In terms of how COVID-19 will affect, I think with the right actions, this pandemic could potentially mark the beginning of a new type of, global and societal cooperation, because the accountancy profession isn't at the forefront, like, for example, the medical profession, but that doesn't mean that the finance profession isn't playing a part. Professional accountants are actually providing business and financial leadership, and they're the ones who are sort of making the difficult decisions and helping organizations to come up with innovative solutions. And the thing about COVID is that it has actually made us sort of rethink everything we do and forced us into this change and sort of sped up the whole digital transformation process. And COVID has basically highlighted the importance of contingency and recovery planning, and even a crisis like this does bring in certain opportunities which should not be ignored. So this is the perfect opportunity for organizations to re-examine their policies, their business models, to explore new products and different approaches to customer services, and also the opportunity to upskill. In fact, actually, there was a report published by ACCA called The Digital Accountant, which was done obviously before COVID. And 81% of the respondents had actually recorded a higher ability with more traditional areas of spreadsheet accounting, but only 20% believed that they had expertise in emerging technologies like AI and machine learning. But after COVID, we may very well see that these metrics have actually changed, because actually in that same survey, 89% actually thought that digital skills were necessary or very necessary. So this shows the willingness of the profession to actually embrace new technology, and shows that they are aware that it's needed, basically. And I mean, as we sort of emerge from this COVID crisis, society will probably expect professional bodies to act sustainably and fairly, and to really contribute to the safety and security of the world, to basically rebuild confidence in this sort of broader economic situation that we are in. And I mean, pretty much the purpose of the finance profession is more important than ever.
Thomas, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tomasz Wiedrowski. I'm the owner of Safi Advisory Services Limited, accountancy practice. I've been the owner of the practice for the last 10 years, and today I would like to share with you my observations, my personal experience with regards to automation, with regards to the COVID-19 situation. Basically, I think that you will find that lots of my points will actually prove that what other panelists were talking about is already happening. Basically, technology, automation, open banking, and cloud software all open new range of possibilities for small practices like mine. First of all, 24/7 access to data from virtually any place, both for accountants and clients, allows for almost instant support to clients. So, for example, clients know that if they have urgent need, such as urgent loan application, they can rely on up-to-date information if their business would qualify. Secondly, time-consuming and repeatable tasks can be fully or semi-automated. This allows for allocating resources to offer a wider range of support to clients, something I will talk about in a minute. Direct advice, ability to track business growth, identifying best time to offer additional services. This means that accountancy service is much more personalized and tailored to specific business needs. Digitalized data allows for time saving when dealing with HMRC. So, for example, tax control is such a good example. In my practice, we have avoided direct visits by tax officers, which are normally much more time consuming. So choosing instead forwarding important documents electronically, which was perfectly fine with HMRC. Using a combination of digital software, cloud computing, and open banking allows me to offer accountancy services to any business in the UK. And although the majority of my clients are are still local, based in London, there are no geographic restrictions. So advisory meetings can be done online. All necessary documents, receipts are uploaded by clients using digital apps. Accountants are becoming even more important business partners to their clients, and clients know that they can ask professional advice without the need to travel to a specific location. There's one thing which Tony mentioned compliance. I still believe that there will be human involvement necessary even with the automation. Automatic processes don't always recognize if, for example, an owner of the business made a mistake and purchased something that should be private using accidentally company business card. It's something that the accountants would know and spot on because they know their clients and they will know them much more personally. Accountants in small practices have much easier access to affordable digital tools, which allow them to save time on most time-consuming matters, such as bookkeeping. Saving time offers the opportunity to provide more direct and personalized service. I believe that this is an excellent opportunity for accountants to transform their business into something which I would call a personalized business hub for their clients. Accountants in the near future will be trusted business partners with wide general knowledge regarding finance, loans, personal wealth, pensions, investments, insurance, and by building a large number of contacts, will be able to direct their clients to their own partners who will then help with those matters. It doesn't mean that accountants will compete for the business directly with financial advisors. For example, accountants will be the first port of call for business customers and will cooperate with financial experts, pension advisors, mortgage advisors, and investment specialists. In my opinion, it will actually create more work for everyone. In the past, only large businesses or wealthy persons were able to afford personalized advisory services that help them with their finance decisions. Accountants will serve as personal business advisors and would be able to direct small business owners and personal clients to the right place, help them with their financial decisions. Previously, such services were not widely accessed by everyone, and not only due to costs, but also because it required searching on your own for the right solutions. Nowadays, it can be accountants' role, and therefore a large number of people will access services tailored to their needs. This in turn will create more leads for professional service providers. Another interesting observation is that accountants can now specialize more. Due to the access to the UK-wide market, not only the local market, using the technology solutions, some accountants advertise their services for a specific range of customers, often from a single industry. So such businesses can grow in their niche markets and due to technology are able to serve a very large number of clients. It is, of course, still important to be able to offer face-to-face meetings. However, the overall requirement for such meetings will reduce, and this is what the current COVID-19 situation is accelerating. Many clients were not accustomed with the idea of the online meetings. This is something that Ed mentioned at the beginning about people's habits. This was part to do with lack of experience in using online tools, but part also with our general habits and the fact that it always used to be like that. So COVID-19 and lockdown kind of forced, in a good way, clients to change their habits, to open up and adapt new technology. And actually, if they do find it easy, very useful, and even fascinating. Everyone who runs a business is concerned about time and moving things online, and so including meetings, without the need to travel to the accountant's office, and that is welcomed by virtually everyone because it is a time-saving matter. In my practice, I already had a roadmap designed in 2019 to digitize my business as much as possible. And by the end of 2019, we were ready to serve our customers mainly online, which proved quite lucky actually in the current situation. Our clients receive access to cloud-based accounting software, apps to digitize receipts. Our meetings are taking place online and documents are exchanged mainly via email. When COVID-19 pandemic resulted in lockdown, I and my colleagues were already working from home, and our business has not been severely affected. Of course, the truth is that we do depend on income paid by our clients, and it is ultimately up to their business performance if we feel financial pressure in a short or longer term. However, due to the application of technology, we had additional time resources, and this allowed me and my team to offer a large amount of support to our clients in recent times. Direct advice tailored to their business, help with grant applications such as coronavirus, job retention scheme. All of that has been done within our standard fees, without extra cost to our clients. So my clients appreciated a lot that kind of assistance that was offered to them, and it will then in turn help me to, I will help them to get through this difficult time, and it will actually help me to maintain and retain that long-term relationship with my clients. It would not be possible without the technology solutions that were applied in my practice. So overall, it is a drive for good. And COVID-19 is basically just accelerating those things.
Fascinating views and insights from all the speakers there, from obviously a range of different viewpoints. We're now going to start the Q&A session, and I'm going to start it off by coming back to Ed with one of your opening points, which was this kind of the concept of pace of change. On one hand, we've obviously seen that COVID-19 is a real time to reset. It's to rethink a lot of things. And your view there in the beginning of reflecting one of the points of the survey, that more people think that the impact of AI and automation, etc., will happen over a longer period of time rather than quick time. Do you think that we have perhaps overestimated the quick impact of these technologies, and do you think that we have a slightly more kind of pragmatic view on the kind of the instinct and the long-term impact of these technologies?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think one of the things that we've thought about and looked at a lot is the impact of automation. Historically, we're thinking about what does this mean for the accounting profession. So we look more broadly at what does this mean for the professions as a whole, but also how has this sort of played out historically. And interestingly, even in the early 20th century, there would be these regular newspaper articles coming out which would sort of predict the death of all the professions, and that we'd all be working in one day, weekend robots would do all the rest of the work. And so people have always been very interested in the idea of automation, but it's always led to a sort of different kind of results than people were expecting. It's not that millions of people are out of work, but just the kind of work that they're doing is different. So this has been a kind of constant drumbeat throughout the last nearly 100 years of people thinking about these things. And so I don't think it's any different over the last 10 years. We've seen quite a few research projects and articles in the papers on news websites around what does automation mean for my job? And I remember there was a tool that BBC put together a couple of years ago now, where you type in the name of your job and it will tell you how likely it was that you're going to be replaced by a robot within the next 10 years. And actually for many jobs, especially in the kind of manufacturing and retail sector, there are those real threats there. I think what the panel has sort of talked about today, interestingly, is where is it that the profession has some essential, irreducible contribution to make. We talk a lot about automated insights and automated categorization, and these are things that are relatively easy for computers to grapple with, but as Thomas was talking about, it's about the relationships between accountants and their clients, and a very kind of human need for support during difficult times, where you absolutely do need a person to talk to walk you through how it's going to work, or how to put this kind of application together, or not to worry, or this is how you might think about growth. And so I think often technologists, like myself, do kind of overplay the impact that AI automation can have, and we like to believe that these tools are going to be very powerful, and we're building those tools, but I think still the impact is going to be limited by what it is a computer can do, and ultimately what you need a human being to do for you as a business owner.
Yes, so Ruby is asking, what is the rate of adoption of open banking looking like for small accountancy practices in the UK? What has already happened, and what is there still to do?
As I said in my piece, I think the rate we're going to start seeing it grow significantly in the coming years. It's I would probably say the right term for it, and among the other panels probably know better than I, but I think it's probably still in its infancy. I think that is probably a good term. It's in its infancy at the moment, and everyone's sort of finding their feet around it, not just the accountants, but also the banks and behind it. We're all sort of feeling our way through it. But undoubtedly, it is beginning to move forward. It's beginning to get taken up more and more. I think the publicity about it is increasing, and that will ratchet that up and expose it to even more people. And as I say in my piece, I think it is going to be one of the big game changers going forward in the next few years.
Julia, you obviously represent a lot of the kind of the smaller end of the sector as well. Is there anything that springs to mind from your point of view?
I think the rate of uptake may depend a little bit on the software that accountants are using, and how whether that yet will integrate with the banking. I know that it does in quite a few of our members, actually, because our members tend to be doing accountancy at scale rather than smaller practices, and so I think it is reasonably prevalent, and if it's not already in our members' businesses, they are certainly looking to bring it on because they can see the value add, and it takes away some of the kind of daily grind, and also will enable real-time accounting and real-time figures for their clients. So yeah, it's coming if it hasn't already.
Yeah, if I can add. So I think Tony said it extremely well. It's still in its infancy. And in my view is, as a technologist, so it's good because it's been forced, right? So this is like mandated by government to say, like, we have to change the way basically banks and systems interact. But I think we're still in the phase where basically it's mandated. Now we're trying to comply with the regulation and saying, yes, we're doing it, but we're not yet fully leveraging what the needs of the customers are, or the real deep integrations that are going to give like a lot of insights. It's starting to be there, but for example, if you compare to other industries and how integrations of system has been happening and how information is being exchanged, I think we still have a long way to go. So I think the fact that it's and as Tony mentioned, it's still in its infancy, it's exactly that. However, it's extremely powerful because over time, at the end of the day, it's the customer who are going to choose from which platform they actually want to start connecting others, and that's how it will be done. But I think it's also because basically it's been mandated. Now we're in this phase of like, we have to do it, and now we need to be into like, let's create and innovate on it.
I just add to that actually. So we have a bit of a different perspective because I suppose we see from the customer point of view across a range of practices what's going on, and we are seeing the majority of our end customers, the businesses themselves, now using open banking or perhaps a historical banking feed, until recently, to connect their finances into their bank. And actually, I was talking a little bit about how that changes the way that software developers think. And in a way, we're moving from this world where you bought a piece of bookkeeping software, you set it up to do your bookkeeping, and you also might just connect your bank account to make it more convenient, from where we're saying, actually, let's start by connecting your bank account. That's the most important thing we can do. Let's get that done first. All right, now there's some other stuff you can do as well. So it's becoming much more banking first rather than bookkeeping first and then banking's a convenience. I think that's as more software providers make that shift, built on the reliable infrastructure of open banking, that will transform people's behaviour a lot more.
Any other questions?
Oh, hey guys, how we doing? Just a quick one. I actually wanted to ask a question, not with my journalist hat on, but my small business hat on. When it comes to cash flow and predicting cash flow, I've tried all sorts of different AI-based ways of trying to sort of predict what happens, but there's so many different inputs that can happen that I haven't discovered an AI that can actually calculate this well. So I end up, like a lot of my peers, using a Google spreadsheet or an Excel to go, all right, I can move this one to next month, and that allows me to get this there. How can you use open banking to be able to manually update it? Because if you link up the bank accounts, you can't then throw in, say, for example, it's a lot harder to throw in, say, cash transactions. So how can you throw in erroneous data that isn't so much connected to the bank account?
It's a very good point, and one that we hear a lot from our customers. And obviously nowadays, especially, people are really mindful of shorter term cash requirements. One of the things that open banking does allow you to do, at least in some implementations, is to look at things like sort of slightly future dated transactions or recurring payments like direct debits, so that you can start to get a bit more of a sense of the future. Our view is that for our kinds of businesses, which I think might be more like you, really complicated grid-based, spreadsheet-based cash flow forecasting going out, 8 months, where you're saying, okay, if I bought 2 vans and then hire these 4 people, what happens to my cash flow? Isn't that relevant for that kind of business? What you want to know is, if things go as they currently are, am I going to run out of money in 10 days' time? So it's more of a kind of cash horizon thing. And everybody runs, if you're a freelancer, if the work stops today, of course you're going to run out of money at some point. It's just, is that far enough away for you to be comfortable? So we're doing quite a lot with thinking about what kinds of recurring transactions we can get from the bank to be able to make our projections better. We obviously have the accounting picture, the future dated invoices we might expect, the future dated bills we might have to pay. And we're in the process of trying to build tools around that can help people understand that kind of shorter term cash picture, which I think is really what people are after. When we try to be clever about it and say, well, if we say this is your current rate of this particular expense and it's growing by 4%, so we're going to project forward by 4%, then we just find ourselves creating a really confusing system nobody understands. So we're just saying, well, what we know, here's the bills, here's the tax bill, here's the invoice that's coming in, here's the direct debits, how do things look? And I think that's hopefully something that is useful and powerful for people to give them some reassurance that things aren't going wrong.
So the cash transactions are really difficult, right? Unless you have human input to say, I've done that with cash, then it's obviously something you can't know. So maybe, acceleration of digitalization actually helps on that. But I'll echo what actually Ed just said. I think predicting the future, any tool, and we're also in the same paradigm, if you're trying to be too smart, then it's also it's outdated the minute you do it. And I think any business owner or anyone actually leading a business knows that, right? The minute you do a budget, it's actually completely outdated. So the minute you try to actually forecast what's going to happen in the future. So then the question becomes, how can you really help into insights, or do you have actually enough money and cash for the next coming weeks and months that are following without adding too much complication on that? But I think I completely agree with you. I think it's still something that is yet to be really well cracked. And actually, the more AI and robots you want to put into that, I'm not really sure that it actually really helps going forward.
Just basically as a tip of advice, I think that just systematically adding the data, that's really important, because the more data there is, the more likely your cash flow prediction will be more accurate. So in terms of this strenuous data or cash transactions, technology can help us well. In my practice, we are using apps that we offer our clients. Those apps allow the clients just to basically make photos of the receipts. The figures are recognized, and that is integrated with the accountancy software. So if you do that regularly, even the cash transactions, they don't really make any difficulty, because if they are added on the daily basis, you've got that data systematically updated, and therefore your view of your cash flow will be much more accurate.
Now, I wanted to come back to something that Dinusha mentioned earlier, which was the kind of the training and development of accountants. Obviously, a lot that we've talked about during this debate has been how the industry will change and move towards kind of stronger compliance, better compliance, more kind of ethics, collaborative models, etc. How do you think that the training and development of accountants might change as a result of COVID? Do you think we're going to see new focus areas being kind of brought to the forefront, new models introduced, etc.? Because clearly things are not going to be the way they were.
Excellent question. Actually, I think COVID-19 was pretty much just the catalyst for things to happen faster. But the change in training and development was pretty much anyway required with the digital transformation that's happening. You'll see that most professional accounting bodies are actually introducing various qualifications to sort of improve the digital skills of the membership. Just off the top of my head, for example, ACCA recently launched the certificate in digital innovation for finance. So that's just one example. I'm sure lots of other bodies are doing similar things. And basically what everybody's trying to do is trying to introduce digital themes into their syllabi. And even universities now are introducing more courses, newer modules on topics like, blockchain, machine learning, cloud computing. And these are not necessarily for IT students. It's all for accounting students, because it's to give, the accounting students sort of an understanding of the basic concepts that they would need in their roles. And the thing is, technology evolves so fast. So, I think everybody really needs to sort of engage in continuous learning and CPD to stay relevant.
The educational bodies are doing what they are supposed to be doing. What's your view on kind of how the government have supported small business financing, etc. so far? We've seen just now they've extended the loans to 100%, but are there areas, do you think, that could be done differently?
I know the government has introduced several schemes like, things like backed and self-assessment payments have been deferred. There have been direct business grants, certain schemes coming up like the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, self-employed income support scheme. And of course, some of those schemes, were subject to a bit of criticism as well. For example, the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, it was found to be actually quite a slow and a bit of a complicated scheme where, businesses found that it actually takes a lot longer for them to access the cash, contrary to what was sort of initially promised or communicated by the Chancellor. And actually, there's been so much demand that even banks have found it hard to cope. And also, there have been many businesses that have actually not been eligible for this scheme. However, in response to these, issues, they've sort of introduced the coronavirus large business interruption loan scheme so that, larger businesses could also be introduced into the scheme. And, well, I guess it's easy for us to say, this something more should have been done or it should have been done, faster. But there are lots of factors to be taken into consideration and, could be resource constraints and, of course, COVID-19 being a completely unforeseen event. So I guess it's just pretty much all the more reason to just get better risk profiling in place, better risk management mechanisms so that, organizations and everybody would sort of be more able to cope with such things. Because, today it's COVID-19, in a month, we don't know what might hit us. It might be something as big and drastic as this is.
Tony, you got a comment?
Yeah, just going back to what we were just talking about in terms of education and several things. Obviously, all the professional bodies have got to look at this in great detail. The problem always with technology is technology advances quicker than we almost have the ability to teach and to train it. So by the time you've understood it, it's moved on. So that's causing big problems, I think, within education. And it seems to be, to a degree, they're trying and bringing little extra blocks within. But I think the profession as a whole really need to get to grip with this and get it really focused much more in the core part that accountants are having to learn. At the moment, a huge amount of it is done by external CPD, where accountants are recognising it themselves and putting more effort into CPD and just keeping up to date with what's going on. So I think that's going to be a big thing that's going to have to change in the future. And we're looking to people, like Tadusha, to help with the training and help bring in the new accounts on and keeping up. It's a damn difficult thing to do. As regards the COVID situation and the government, let's be 100% honest. To be able to put together what they've done in such a short space of time is pretty damn remarkable when you consider the almighty mess they've made of MTD and how long it took them to get that. They've got nowhere with that, but yet we can get this out in 2 minutes. Oh dear, a few people smiling. Yes. Yes, so when we think when they really want to do it, they can do it. But hey, maybe that's a point I shouldn't make. There you go. That's what they can do. I'll be all over now. That's it. I won't say any more. But they did do remarkably well to get the furloughing scheme out, and the loan scheme was a disaster from the beginning, but now the new bounce back may work a lot better for small business.
I want to give the opportunity to any speakers to make any final comments to either reinforce anything that we've said so far that is important to you or mention anything new. Julia, is there anything that you want to comment on as a last leaving thought?
Not particularly, actually, but thank you for the opportunity. Just really, we feel really positive about the future for the profession and for the profession's customers at the end of the day, with automation and AI, and the more we can harness it, the better for everyone concerned. And it's really just as simple as that from my perspective.
Wonderful. Thomas, any last thoughts from you?
I completely agree with the other panelists, and I agree with Julia that we can be very positive about the future as an industry. I think that technology brings those opportunities, the opportunities that we've discussed today. Of course, it will be a transformation. Accountants will work differently, but I think it will be much more exciting environment rather than spending time on a daunting task or those repeatable tasks that sometimes, to be honest, can get boring. And we'll have much more, exciting work in front of us, much more exciting environment. It will be more about meeting other people, social contact, socializing with not only with clients but also to have wide range of contacts, to be able to offer wide range of services. So that's just brilliant, and being part of being a business partner of my clients, so taking part in their business growth, that is a very exciting feeling as well. So I'm really looking forward to the future.
Thank you. Marika, any last comment from you?
The same. Well, as a technologist, very optimistic, obviously, about the future and digitalization. And I think, if anything, crisis is always the genesis of innovation. So people are getting upskilled. I think this is pushing us to also do things faster. So looking forward to that future for everybody.
Thank you very much. Ed, anything from you?
I think we've covered it all. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us. I think it's been a really interesting discussion, and hopefully it will be the start of a whole new series of interesting conversations among us.
Super. Danusha, anything last from you?
No, nothing from me, Michael.
Perfect. Well, Tony, you kicked off the last comment, so thank you very much. I started off by looking out at the weather and mentioning it was rain and doom and gloom. I feel a lot more upbeat now. I hope you all do as well, because there are some very, very encouraging views from everyone on how this industry will go forward. It is clear that from a number of aspects, this will be a changing time. We've talked about how this is a time that will fast track technology and automation. It's a time to rethink business models. We might see forms of new collaborative models coming through, a greater focus on understanding our finances, our personal lives, things will be very different in this kind of what people talk about, this new economic world order. So we would love to again reconvene with everybody in a few months' time to see if everyone's kind of crystal balls have worked out as the way you thought. Thank you very much, everyone, again, and have a great rest of the day.